And we're live. Welcome back to United in the States weekly news show. It's the third news show I'm doing so far. I actually wasn't going to do this one because the kids are off school this week and international games are on every 5 minutes, but even more news dropped this week. Lots of interesting stuff going on. So, let's get right to it. First thing, Fabrizio Romano tweeted out today in manager news front that Erik ten Hag's contract is almost done. Now, this isn't something that's super unexpected. It's definitely something that we knew was going to happen eventually. But it's better off that we're getting this news now that it's happening instead of it dragging into training camp, the preseason tour, etc. So this is, expected news, but it's also welcome news because getting this done now means it's all taken care of and we don't have to worry about it, giving the season sort of a shadow or, making it less likely that, we're worrying about this as the season goes on. With that being said, if you want to make a story out of this, there is the idea that, Ineos bringing him in, looking at other managers and deciding to stick with him, he is going to relinquish some of the power that he had when he signed up to be our manager. But I think that's a bad thing for him, for anybody, for the club. Absolutely not, especially not for Erik ten Hag. The structure that he was operating under is a structure that was built by and for Sir Alex Ferguson. And the best case scenario, it's a 10-year-old structure. Worst case scenario, it's something like 30, 35 years old. Basically, he was running the whole show himself, like he was Vince Lombardi or something. And that's just not how a modern professional sports franchise or club should operate. And he thrived at Ajax when he had Edwin van der Sar and Mark Overmars as CEO and director of football, respectively, running the day-to-day and the player acquisition side so Ten Hag could focus more on tactics and coaching. Sir Alex Ferguson, everybody knows now he was such a beast. And the fact that he kept everything afloat with as little help as he had is what makes it even more impressive. I mean, if you think about it, he was essentially the manager, the GM, the president. Imagine a modern day sports team that did not have a general manager. United signed their first or, hired their first, promoted their first, quote unquote general manager. They call him director of football 2 years ago, which is pretty insane considering this is something that's been going on in most sports teams for at least 20 plus years. Another news, assistant manager news, Ruud van Nistelrooy, former Manchester United striker. Sources in Netherlands have confirmed that he will be added to Ten Hag's staff, or at least they're insinuating he'll be added to Ten Hag's staff as one of his assistant coaches. And Fabrizio Romano actually confirmed yesterday that Ruud is very tempted by the offer of coming to United and being on Ten Hag's staff, even though he's also in consideration for the Burnley job. Now, normally I'd say, why would someone want to be an assistant manager instead of a head coach or a manager, especially since Burnley's last manager, Vincent Kompany, got them relegated from the Premier League to the second division, and he got to go get the Bayern Munich job, which is the biggest job in Germany. I would say, though, one, United's a different animal than Burnley, especially with the connection he has. There's a Dutch connection between Ruud van Nistelrooy and Erik ten Hag. There's videos of them floating around Twitter when they played against each other in the Netherlands in the top league there, the Eredivisie. Also, Ruud has a connection to United. He played 5 seasons there, scored 130 goals, 26 assists, and also, he's revered by the fans and the club as a lethal gunman, a lethal bagsman, goal getter, whatever you want to call him, sniper in the box, whatever, fox in the box, one of the most elite finishers the Premier League and world football has ever seen. Also, he would have a young striker to mold in Rasmus Højlund at United, as well as he could possibly be a lure for young Dutch striker Joshua Zirkzee, who it seems that United are competing with AC Milan for. and also Jared Branthwaite, who's an Everton center back. But Branthwaite spoke very fondly of his time being coached and managed by Ruud when he played under him at PSV 2 seasons ago. So the United fans are super pumped at the possibility of getting him back. There's some rumors that it's a condition in Ten Hag's contract that he also bring in someone like Ruud to fill out his staff. I don't know how true that is, but I do know Ten Hag was looking at Ruud and Robin van Persie because of their United connection before his first season. So I think this is something he'd be excited for. I think for Ruud, he'd be excited as well to return to United. And if I'm being a little bit cynical, there is the possibility that things don't go as smoothly as possible for Ten Hag in season 1. They want to make a switch. Ruud van Nistelrooy will be someone who's there, and the squad will be used to him. He has the connection to the club. It's kind of an easy transfer of power from Ten Hag to Ruud, if it ever came to that. I don't think it will. Ten Hag's the guy. I believe that, and I think Ineos are going to make every effort to give him the best chance to succeed. But that's an option for people who are holding out hope that Ten Hag doesn't last. I'm still helping you guys out as well. Transfer news this week. Let's look at the ins. Things are definitely starting to heat up from a transfer perspective. We're starting to get more concrete targets for each position. Same priorities. Center back is still the priority. It looks like, Jean-Clair Todibo of Nice was almost done deal, as reported this week by Romano and a few other people, by Jim Ratcliffe himself in a BBC interview. But, UEFA's rules against multi-club ownership. Ineos own 26% of United. They own around 30% of Nice. And for us to play in the same competition, United winning the FA Cup meant they moved into the Europa League, where Nice was in as well, because they fell out of the top 4 because they went on a skid last 10 games of the season. Both teams were in the same competition. So one of the rules that allowed them, or a couple of the rules that allowed them to play together in the same competition, is Ineos have to place Nice in a blind trust for a year, so they're not operating them. And 2, there could be no player trades or transfers between the two clubs. Very unfortunate. Todibo was someone who Ten Hag liked, the last regime liked. Everybody was on board with this guy signing, and Todibo wanted to come to the club. But now he can't join United. It's a terrible ruling. There's all kinds of loopholes and clubs doing this. It always seems like United are the only team that can't do these things, when, the Red Bull group's been doing it for years. Man City, the City group, has been doing it, transferring in between clubs. But they invented this rule, I guess, in the winter, and it ends in September. So technically, if he wanted to wait till January, we could potentially sign him, but I don't think he wants to wait. It sounds like he wants to move now, and he's talking to other clubs. He's a perfect fit, I think, for the team, and it's very unfortunate we're not going to get him. Our main target, though, and I think even our main target before Todibo, it looked like we were going to try to get both, is Jared Branthwaite, and he still is in United sights. They made that first bid at 35 mil. And it looks like they're going back in this week for a second bid. And what they're looking to do before they go back in is they want to know that Everton will potentially lower their valuation of 70 to 80 million pounds. Everton saying, look, we sold Fofana to Chelsea for 80 million. United bought Maguire for 80 million. We think Branthwaite is valued at 80 million. United think Everton needs to sell, and they really do, to meet the PSR, or profit and sustainability rules, by the end of June 30th, or else they can have a situation like last year where they get a points deduction, and then they get risk at getting relegated, and getting relegated means you lose tens, if not hundreds of million pounds if you don't come back up, etc. They've been selling academy players and randos for inflated fees. It looks like some shady business going on between a few Premier League clubs and one Serie A Italian club. And even so, if it's inflated or whatever, apparently I saw the Swedish Rumble said this on Twitter, academy player transfers do not count towards PSR compliance, at least not at that level, people who haven't played before. But, who knows? And it feels like Everton are willing to roll the dice rather than be compliant. So there's kind of a game of chicken going on between United and Everton. United look like they're going to go in for a second bid. They're willing to up the price from 35 million pounds, but they need to know a range. They need to know a area where this bid's going to be accepted, and it's not going to be them just spinning their wheels and negotiating against themselves, because nobody else is in for Branthwaite. They just need to know that they want to get the deal done. I think something like 40-45 million with maybe 8 to 10 million in add-ons could get it done. Hopefully that would be enough. Some people say that's overpaying, but we want to get this deal done as soon as possible. As far as defensive midfield, that's our second priority. It was kind of no real indication on who the main targets were, but some news started to pop this week. Edson Alvarez of Mexico and West Ham, he was linked this past week. That link makes sense because he played for Ten Hag at Ajax, came to the Premier League with West Ham, had a very good season, and he's familiar with the way Ten Hag wants to play, his style, and Ten Hag knows he can trust him. He kind of downplayed links, but he didn't turn it away. He's more like, I'm focused on the Copa America. He's Mexico's captain, and he said, we'll see what happens after that. So it looked like there could have been another, opportunity or a bid going in for him. Then he hurt his hamstring in Mexico's first match against Peru, I believe. I forget who they were playing, but he got hurt in that match. And even though they said it's not going to be super serious, they expect him to miss the rest of the Copa America. Hamstring injuries, they could be 3 months, they could be 3 weeks, anywhere in between. As long as you make sure you get healed properly, you should be okay. But I would say like no transfers now until it's clear how injured he is. But I think it's something to keep an eye on. Another person we were linked to this week, and his name is Manuel Ugarte. He plays for PSG, but he played for Sporting Lisbon last year. He's Uruguayan. I think he's also at Copa America. This is a similar profile as an Edson Alvarez. He's a ball winner. He's decent on the ball, like in tight spaces. He can carry a little bit. Not the greatest long passer. Same with Edson Alvarez. But he went to PSG, and he hasn't really played a lot this year. And there's rumors that he's available on a loan to buy fee this year, or a loan to buy deal this year, which I think would suit United pretty well, because there would be a nominal fee, maybe 5-10 million pounds, and they get them for the season. And if they like them, they get to keep them next year. And they don't have to spend a ton of money on a DM, and they can continue to build in the midfield with someone else like Joshua Zirkzee, if that's the case. If not, if they do sign him, I like the cut of this guy's jib. He's very, very intense player, very physical, kind of a leader on the field, real mentality monster, a guy who doesn't mind getting in and getting a tackle in. And I think Ten Hag likes players like that. He's good in the high press as well. And, there was a match against Arsenal in the Europa League last year where a lot of people fell in love with him. Didn't have the best time at PSG playing for Xavi. Xavi has a little bit more of a, possession-based system, which he didn't thrive in. I think Ten Hag wants to play somewhat of a possession-based style, but, we're trying to do that kind of like transitional thing. So if he can go up high, win the ball back, pass it forward to our, attacking players, Bruno, Garnacho, Rashford, Højlund, Ahmad, etc., then he could have a role here, especially if we could rotate him with some other players, maybe a Toby Collier or someone else who we sign in. As far as strikers, Sky Sports reported this week that United are now front runners for Joshua Zirkzee. And, the news is AC Milan still don't want to pay his agent fee. Apparently his agent has beef with AC Milan, some longstanding beef, some Italian vendetta. But and the rumor is that he'll lower the agent fee slightly. It's like 15 million agent fees for Milan, but only 8 million for United will get it done. I think that's too much, but it sounds like something that, they're willing to do with us. Honestly, it still feels like agent talk, and it still feels like something where, we're being used to kind of like put the fire to someone else's feet or drum up more business or other striker business. But I would love if we signed Zirkzee, and it sounds like we are interested in him. But again, they're kind of feeling out the lay of the land with him, his representatives, to say if we do go in, because there is a release clause for Zirkzee. You just play the release clause, and you don't have to negotiate with the club. He's just your player as long as you have terms agreed. They want to make sure, like we do, that we're not being played for fools here, and that he actually does want to come with us. So hopefully we sign Ten Hag, Dutch. We signed Ruud van Nistelrooy, greatest Dutch striker ever, possibly, or at least one of the top three. And someone like Zirkzee is excited to come and join that group, play in a style he's familiar with, with a couple of coaches who he thinks will get the best out of him. And you know how Ten Hag loves a player who can play a false nine role. Martial did so well that first preseason. We looked so much better when he was there. I think Xerxes can have a similar impact. Two other players that are linked from the striker position, Ivan Toney and Jonathan David. You know, no real solid links yet, but, you know, it says that United have looked into both of them. But the way things are going, it could be that we've looked into them and moved on, and there's some other option, or, you know, that we don't know about, similar to Emmanuel Ugarte, from PSG, who's going to come out of the woodwork. Left back and right back are also linked. No solid links right now. I think we're going to have to move some players on before we start looking at those positions, especially the right back position. If Aaron Wan-Bissaka goes, then we'll probably buy somebody. Right wing, this is someone we would link to since mid-May. Never linked to as us going in and negotiating and, you know, making offers. It was more we appreciated him. I know people are going to give me a hard time and be like, oh, yeah, United didn't want to sign him. He didn't turn you down. I'm not saying United didn't want to sign him, but it's definitely pretty evident that we didn't go in for him pretty much at any point until maybe even the last second. He went to Bayern Munich. It sounds like, you know, you needed to pony up a bunch of cash up front, that 45 million pound release clause, and then there's some add-ons. And then also apparently he's getting a huge salary, something north of 220K pounds per week. Writing was not really a priority. It sounds like if we had sold Greenwood or Sancho right away, then maybe we could have gone in for Elise. And look, it might be something we regret a year from now, 2 years from now, if he turns out to be a megastar. But at the same time, it looks like we have options there, and we were never going to go in for him unless he's willing to wait till later in the window. Desiree Doué is another player I think who's appreciated in that position, but it doesn't really look like, you know, that he's that like highly rated, or he's definitely going to sign right now either way. But he's somebody who's still on the cards, and I think something around 30 million euros would get him in the club. Now let's look at the outs. Still pretty quiet. I think we're going to do a few deals either at the end of this month or first week of July, bringing players in, and then we're going to focus on selling players either this week or the next week, or you know, further on in January, just because, you know, you want to get those ins, but you want to sell players in the new year, because then those sales can help you for financial fair play, profit and sustainability, et cetera, for the next 3 years. So that's why you always wait till the calendar year ticks over to make sales. Again, something I learned from Swedish Rumble. I'm not an expert. Don't at me. So Greenwood, there was a bid from Lazio apparently this week for about 17 million pounds and a 15% sell-on fee, which was rejected outright by United. United want that cash money up front for Greenwood. They're looking for about 30 mil. I think they'll get something in that range, maybe 25. The rumor was they wanted 40, and I think they want something to settle at around the 30 million range. The first club that gets to that range is going to get Greenwood. I think they're just kind of testing United's mettle, but there's teams in Spain and Italy who sound like either they're interested, or maybe it's just, you know, agent talk, or United is floating this out there. But it does sound like there's teams who are interested because they know he's a good player. He did a good job in Getafe last year, and they have a feeling that he can perform in those leagues and do a very good job. Next player who might go out is Casemiro. Lots of Saudi interest, but there's no rush there. You know, there was a rumor that he was no longer interested in Saudi, and potentially he would move on and go to America, or even stay and try to earn his place here at United. But honestly, I never really believed that. And Saudi, it's too appealing, the cash that they have to offer there. You know, they're still figuring out on their end how much budget they're going to throw at the teams. The Saudi one, like, ownership group basically owns the majority of the teams. And then there's a few other, like, stragglers who are owned by, you know, individual people. It's mostly the same, like, you know, groups of people, very wealthy Saudi business owners. But, you know, they're not necessarily going to spend as much as they did on Ronaldo 2 winters ago, or other players they did last year. They said they're looking to be a little bit more measured, but Casemiro is a long-term target for them. And I feel like he's a player who could really do well there. He still wants to go there. There is interest on his side, but he wants to make sure that he is, getting the best deal that he can get. Sound like an owner or an agent. Hey, look, if someone wants to float me some cash, I'm happy to, buy a club, run it into the ground. Run it successfully. But end of the day, everybody's interested in this. I'm just the only one who's blabbing on YouTube right now. But thanks for the comment. That's amazing. And Sancho, the links are still quiet. He's been linked to Juventus if they get Greenwood, but there's nothing solid besides that. I think United are hoping some teams come in, but it's been very quiet. And Dortmund are kind of waiting on the wings, hoping that at the end of August they can get him on loan again, because he's definitely not going to be involved now that Ten Hag is back and they two have beef. So, Sancho is hopefully going to get somewhere else to go. Or it looks like he'll be going back to Dortmund on loan again, which is terrible. But, if that's what you got to do, you got to do it. The other two outs that we've been linked with are Lindelof and Aaron Wan-Bissaka. Lindelof, the center back, Aaron Wan-Bissaka, the right back. They're both linked with Turkey for peanuts. Sounds like around 10 million euros each. I think that's way too little. They should probably get like 20 million each. They're both full, or Lindelof's a full international. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, one of the best defensive right backs in Europe. I think they could go to Italy, Germany, Spain, any of those places and play very well. It's just there's not a huge market for them. I think partially the inflated salaries of Premier League players, of United players especially, but also they're a little bit older and they both have 1 year left on their contract. But hopefully, we hold out for better fees for both of them. It sounds like neither of them are in a rush to move to Turkey either and would prefer to go to more competitive leagues. Now, United internationals at Euros and Copa America. So McTominay for Scotland officially knocked out of the Euros. They did not win a match. I think they lost all three. Looks like he's coming on the U.S. tour with United. I'm fine with that. The more players on the tour, the better. If you know me, I'm not super excited about international play. I'd rather the players get back and play with United, but, I want them to be happy. And, Licha winning the World Cup last year with Argentina and then being drunk for an extra 2 weeks, not last year, this year before, I was fine with that, and I was super happy for him. Luke Shaw and Kobe Mainoo are with England. England won their group, but they played well below their expectations given the talent level. Gareth Southgate is taking arrows from every direction, shots fired from every direction for his managing nous and his tactics. Totally deserved. But, Kobe Mainoo's barely played. Thank goodness he's not being blamed for their nonsense. And Luke Shaw still isn't even fit. It looks like he's back in training today, might play next week for the knockouts. Who knows? Maybe they'll have him on the bench. Maybe they'll get knocked out. He doesn't get a chance to play, and he goes back to United, continues his recovery there, or he goes on vacation for 2 weeks and then goes back to United and tries to recover. Either way, England camp seems like a complete waste of time. They could turn it around. They have a lot of talent, but they're in the tough bracket with Portugal and France. So chances are they're not making it to the finals. Højlund and Eriksen with Denmark. They came second in their group behind England, I believe. They're level on points with Slovenia, but, or Serbia, I forget which one. But it looks like they're a little bit higher. I don't know if it's goal difference is the same. So maybe it's yellow cards, whatever, some weird tiebreaker. Neither players looked really like standouts during the tournament. Eriksen started hot, but then he tailed off a little bit. Just shows he's a little older. His legs aren't quite where they used to be. Dalot and Bruno play for Portugal. Portugal has one more group stage match tomorrow, but they're likely to top their group. Bayindir, the goalkeeper, he actually started for Turkey in the last match against Portugal, but he gave up 3 goals. One of them not his fault, the dumbest own goal, or one of the dumbest own goals you'll see from the center back. He might play against Czechia, formerly Czech Republic, tomorrow. Czechia, sorry. And then the big story from the Euros, I would say, is Austria, who topped the group with France and Netherlands in it. Ralph Ragnick, former United manager, interim manager, kind of laughed out of England, showing his style works if he has player buy-in for his system. The United players, they bought in for the first half of the first game he coached, and then they gave up from that point on, and it was a downhill slope from him, or an uphill battle, whatever analogy you want to use. And he kind of his reputation was tainted a little bit. Like, why did director of football be given a coaching job. And he's shown that his system has been, they've basically outplayed every team except maybe France. It was an even match, but the only goal they gave up was a mistake by their part, own goal header by their center back, which he definitely shouldn't have done. If it wasn't for that goal, then there's a chance that they're the best team in this division in every game, not just by points because France couldn't score goals with Mbappe out. As far as Copa America, we're in the group stage. Lisandro Martinez and Garnacho, Argentina players. Garnacho hasn't featured yet. Lisandro Martinez featured in their win against Canada. They won 2-0 in the first match of the tournament. And Lisandro Martinez did look a little shakier than normal, but he's still doing Lisandro Martinez things. Hard tackles, escaping pressure, and playing forwards in on goal from the left center back position. They play Chile tonight in about 30 seconds in the Copa America group stage. Hopefully Garnacho gets some playing time sooner rather than later. But yeah, that's it for the stream today. Let me know your thoughts on Ruud coming in. Do you want him to come in? Do you believe he's coming in? Let me know which transfer targets you think are coming in as well, and which teams you have winning the Euros and Copa America. Also, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future videos. Up the Reds.